live, and it is 4:15 on Friday, the 24th of January. I usually just chat for a bit while Instagram tells people that I'm here. A couple of people already. So hopefully these are people who have these questions for me to answer. Let me tell you, if you can avoid it, getting old is just not that all that it's cracked up to be. So it looks like I've got several people here, very excited. And so Iris, did you want to be in the video? I think you probably hit that by mistake, but let me know. So I have a question from somebody who couldn't be here, so I will handle that. And I will, keep my eye on comments. So if you want to ask me something, please do. We're going to have a little experiment to start here. I couldn't figure out how to do this without being live. I guess I could have. So look at that. Can you read that? Okay, so I mirrored my Irene. Okay, so this one. Yeah, so I have in the past held up flashcards that no one could read because, of course, the camera flips everything. So I thought we would start with just getting a couple of things that I will use terms over and over again. Okay, so size is the average measurements from which the garments are built. So, and those are average body measurements. So, like I have sizing tables, and they've got measurements for every size that are based on average body sizes. So that is sizing. And so when we say I'm a size 10, it means that I somehow fit within the basic parameters of size 10. So next thing that comes up, and we actually use this inappropriately, but it's the term that we use, so I want to stick with it. So grade or grading, it's the difference between the sizes. So a size 10 has a 36-inch bust and a size 12 has a 40-inch bust. Then the grade is that 4 inches between. It could be 2, it can be 3, whatever. But this is built into the sizing table. So you've already said I'm going from 36 to a 40. And so anybody who falls in between that is going to have to decide which direction they go. And this is partly why sizing goes so awry. Okay, but we have a third thing that we need to add into that, and that is ease. And that's the amount added to size measurements for design and ease of wearing. So, for instance, this top that I'm wearing today, it's a rib knit. There is no ease in it. Now, somebody else could put this on, and it could have, and I would say that it is perfectly my 36 and a half. It's not too big, it's not stretching, but it's also not too small. So let's say that my bust, instead of being 36 and a half, was 37 and a half. So I could still happily wear this. It would just be a little more form-fitting to my body. So the same with this sweater, which is, can you believe it used to close easily? So these are all ready to wear things, not things. So if I button up the buttons, you can see that I can wear this. It's probably, again, it's probably like 37 inches. There's like hardly any extra room in there. And because I never button it up, it doesn't matter. And this sweater comes from a brand, a sub-brand of a brand that is focused on younger bodies. Well, I started this by complaining about being old, so I am not who they're trying to fit. But I love the sweater, and when I bought it, I was younger. So how you like to wear your clothes is just so crucial to the ease equation. So if a designer says, this is meant to be worn with 4 inches of ease, they're just saying that's the amount of ease they put in for the number on their size chart. I can wear it and have 3.5 inches of ease and be perfectly happy. Or somebody else might wear it who's got a 34-inch bust, but really likes things to be bigger. Okay, so, and I'm only talking about bust right now, nothing else, because there's just so many different ways to look at ease, not every part of the body. I've taken a size from my size chart. I say I'm a size 10 because that's closest to my body measurements, except for my waistline, which is like 6 inches bigger than the sizing chart. Okay, then I add ease to that. And I've chosen the size 10 because if I look at the 12, it's too big, and I look at the 8, it's too small. And there's nothing in between. There is no size 10.5 or whatever it would be in between. So you choose a size. And I know Rena's had this problem recently. The bust is not always the best determiner of your size because it depends on the style, and then it depends on how much ease the designer put into the design. So particularly a problem on yoke sweaters because not enough measurements go into choosing your sweater, your size. So I've done a ton of research on these, and you know, if I ever have free time, I'll write a book about it. Those are kind of the basics of sizing. So number one, if you are a knitter who's buying a pattern, you need to know what sizing the designer used. They don't ever tell you. I shouldn't say they don't ever, but it has not been common in the past that they provide that. You're kind of just making a guess. And if you can't see the schematic, you're guessing even more. So the schematic is going to tell you what the finished measurements are. So from that, you can say, well, I'm a 36.5-inch bust, and if the sweater is 40 inches, then is 3.5 inches of ease appropriate? The other thing that goes into it is the fabric. Yeah, and I'll get into all of that, Sarah Dawn, because bust is like the least good predictor of what size you're going to wear. But so, what was I saying? Shaking my fingers, so it must have been important. So, the fabric. So this garment is a super fine gauge cashmere. So, I can wear it without hardly any ease because itself is not taking up a lot of space. So the heavier the yarn, kind of the more ease you have to put in to account for the fabric going around the body. I don't have anything heavy nearby, but you can see like this is compared to this. This is just a merino DK. I'm going to want more I'm not going to be happy with a cardigan that's 37 inches because the fabric itself is going to take up probably that extra inch. Actually, that would only be 1/2 of an inch. So you have to think about, it's like everything in knitting. You've got like balls up in the air. And how you choose your pattern is really important. And a knitter is often doing it, with a patch over one eye. Can anybody see how my eyebrows are like even more uneven than they usually are? And then I'm wearing a bandage over here. So I have this huge carotis mole over here, and it started bleeding, so they took it off. The lanacane hasn't completely worn off. At least my eyelid is not sitting on my eyelashes anymore. I was talking to Mitch, who's taller than me. I was like holding my forehead up. So anyhow, that's like the basic. If you are a designer, then you should have a sizing table. Please don't use the Craft Yarn Council measurements. They are terrible. You can go to my website and buy mine for $5 if you're a designer. Even if they're not exactly what you want, they'll give you a place to jump off from. They are based on STM standard sizing guidelines, which is what everybody in the garment business uses. And then everybody tweaks it a little bit. So mine is tweaked to accommodate a more mature figure. I figure, nobody under 35 is making my stuff. So I'm a little generous at the waist. I'm a little more generous at the bust. I know, dermatologist is pretty good. But some of my glasses are sticking to this. It's kind of a sticky bandage. So if you can't afford ASTM, and they cost like over $50, and you do get like 20 sizes, but I understand it's a lot, then go buy mine for $5 and it'll give you a place to start. I would rather have people use mine than not use them at all or use CYC. So that is why ease is, first of all, how ease is misinterpreted. And then we have different ease needs at different places. So I may want 4 inches at my bust. I don't want 4 inches up here on my shoulders because that's where my sweater is hanging off of. It needs to fit here and through my upper body more than it needs to be completely accurate kind of below my armpits. So, but again, those are numbers that you will rarely see offered up as to what they are. So my shoulders are quite wide, and you measure your shoulder width from edge of that bone. I should have brought I actually had a note to bring my skeleton, but I forgot. Okay, so this is a little bit better than me poking at myself. Let's see if I can get this put together again. So when you're measuring, you want to measure from the edge of this bone, can you see, here, to the same place on the other side. The skeleton's arms sit out a bit so that they can move, and bone is inserted a little bit more than this, but this gives you an idea. That is your shoulder width measurement, okay? And that is the absolute widest that you would ever want, like a set-in shoulder or set-in sleeve. But if you think about it, you don't want your sleeve hanging out here. Now this one, you can see that my shoulder seam is actually right here. My shoulder ends here. And so this isn't falling off my shoulders. That's the key. So I actually use negative ease when determining a shoulder width. So I will say, if I'm doing a set-in sleeve or a raglan, never mind, don't forget the raglan. I don't want to explain it. So you want it to be where it's going to sit comfortably and not allow the weight of the sleeve to pull off your shoulder. So you can go in quite a way. Okay, and I'm going to get to drop shoulders in just a minute. So you can go in quite a bit, but you have to make up the difference on your sleeve cap. So if I look at a pattern and it says that I have a 15-inch shoulder width with a set-in sleeve, I know that my sleeve is going to be sagging off my arms because even my shoulders can't hold that up. So, the big problem in fit is almost all is getting from your bust to your shoulder width, and then what happens in here. I could, in fact, write a book about this. So if you want a drop shoulder, then obviously you're adding to that. So the way I always figure out from my shoulder width how much I want for my drop shoulder is where do I want that line to come on my arm. So do I want it here? Do I want it down here? Do I want it someplace in between? That's how much ease you then add on, except that that sleeve is going to pull, and so you need to make sure that you're not being overly generous, okay, unless you have a very tight sleeve up to that. So what happens with the way the patterns are graded is they just keep adding into the width of the shoulder, and bodies aren't changing at the rate in this width where you don't need hardly any ease anyhow. But they keep adding in, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, but those people may in fact be small. When we get heavier, we do not get taller. So, you are whatever height you are. I will say I'm 5'8", but I'm probably 5'7 3/4 now. That hasn't changed. That's a quarter of an inch over 70 years. Well, I wasn't 5'8" until I was 13. Yeah, it would be great if we got taller when we get heavier, but we don't. But what happens is that we put on padding, and upper arms are a problem. Often there's padding in here, but there may not be a lot of padding here at the rotator cuff. So then you see people who have like a divot here towards their skeleton. And if your body, oh, hey, Maya's a former student of mine. As your body gets bigger, okay, this is something that I have not scientifically proven it yet. But so when your arms get fatter, they just squish out. So when you put it down to your body, your arms just squish out. Or if you've got a muscle here, I can take off. Sorry for my old lady arms. But so you can see that my arms just squish out. They don't stick way out. But what happens is as your body gets bigger, your arm sits at an angle to your body instead of falling down. You can see mine is almost at 45, whatever that is, 90 degrees. So that causes this divot up here because you got your arm, you got your body, but it's because your body isn't allowing your arm to sit next to your body. And let's see, I'm trying to read. Yeah, so I had super skinny arms always, and in the last 5 years, they've gotten not so skinny and with, horrible flesh because my skin suit is too large. So this is the most important area to figure out, and making the transition from what you need at the widest point of your bust to what you need here is the most important thing in fit. And you can see on me, because I've got back fat now, that may have extra here. I don't have big boobs, so almost all of my bust is from my rib cage and now from fat that's sitting there. So because I can't talk forever today, I'm so excited that I got this right. So what I did was I typed it in and then I flipped it over. Don't ask me why, I'd never thought of that before. So I have decided that there are 7 body types. Just going to move my skeleton here. So the first one is the hourglass, which is what all the sizing tables are based on. Even plus sizes, they assume that you've got bust measurement and flashcards, and then your waist is smaller, and then your hips are larger than your bust. Okay, all you have to do is go out into the world and you can see that that is not always the case. So for many women, their bust is quite large in comparison to their hips and their shoulders. So I call this an inverted trapezoid. Think of it as like a triangle upside down. And instead of being wider at the shoulders, they're wider at the bust. So their torso is an inverted trapezoid, but then they may have smaller shoulders. Then there's an inverted trapezoid with larger shoulders. So that's going to be what we typically think of as, Bryn says I have an hourglass with a lot of sand. Me too. It's all stuck in the middle. So this is going to be XY skeleton. And if you've gone through puberty, regardless of how you identify or if you take hormones, your skeleton is going to be the same. So you're going to have the wider shoulders from developing with a bunch of testosterone, and you're never going to get the hips that women get from the exposure to estrogen. So I think this is important for inclusion, to be thinking about people who have started with a different chromosomal, whatever it is. So then many of us are kind of oval shaped, where you are larger at your waistline than at either your bust or your hips. And so this, think of a guy with a big belly, or a woman who's pregnant, or someone who carries most of their weight in their belly. So a gal who comes to my Fit clinic is diabetic, and she has a problem that she carries her weight just in her belly. And so, and there are a lot of people in that space right now because of diet, or I believe it's because of diet. Okay, so now we're down to number 5, which is a rectangle. And a rectangle is like basically your bust, waist, and hips are about the same. When I was younger, I was probably rectangle. Women who are athletic are often more rectangles because they have a lot more muscle mass. Sometimes it's just genetic, that like everything came out about the same. So probably more rare than we would think. So square is often what happens to people as they get older. The lower part of gets smaller, and their legs get smaller. And so they're just like, my mother always called it barrel-bodied, so it's like everything's kind of the same, but that your actual lower hip measurement may be smaller than your higher hip measurement. So again, that's something that we see, especially as people age. Smokers often have that figure. And then a trapezoid would be somebody who's got a big butt and whose hips are much wider than their bust. So, typically in an hourglass figure, we allow for 4 inches of difference between the bust and the hip. And so it's going to be some measurement greater than 4 inches. And again, something that, is fairly common to see, but it can make it very difficult for those people to find things that fit, because they fit down to their waistline and then just goes to hell because their bottom, it's not always in their butt. Sometimes it's evenly distributed, sometimes it's lower belly, sometimes it's just wide hips, but it can make it hard to find size that fits you without you having to make adjustments. So that's what I have to say about ease. And so the reason that, when I was younger, I used to wear at the top, I used to wear wear between like an 8 and a 12, because I had large shoulders and I don't mind a lot of ease. At that point, we wore like lightweight wovens. We didn't wear sweaters. So we all have preferences as to how much ease we like and what makes us feel comfortable. And if you've got a little fat here, you may want some extra fabric so that it's not grabbing you there, or, extra ease in the garment. So there are a couple of schools of thought on ease. And one is that, you put 4 inches into every size. So, let's say you would have for 36, you might have, and 4 inches is just an example. You could put 6 or 8, but that applies to every size. And I think that works to a certain extent. But again, assuming that everybody is shaped exactly the same and wants the same amount of ease. So I am a big fan of something that I call relative ease. And when you're small on top, above your bust, you have to make adjustments or nothing's going to fit you. So, what was I saying? Oh, relative ease. So that is where, I may put 3 inches of ease in my smallest sizes at the bust. Then I might do 4 kind of across my middle sizes, and then maybe do 5, and up in my larger sizes do even more than that. It really depends on the design whether I do that. But it allows that the body underneath is not the same pole that you might have if you're a size 6. Or, if you have big boobs, then how do you get down to measurement for your hips? Anyhow, sizing is so complicated. And I'm writing a blog right now about that we can't have inclusive sizing without every part of the industry participating. So just because you're a photographer doesn't mean that you shouldn't be working to make sure that people have clothing that fits, so you don't have to put binder clips on the back of it to make it fit. And, that might be that you're saying, well, I'm not going to be able to shoot everybody wearing an extra small. Some body types are going to need a larger size or a smaller size. So I used to think it was really funny that I'm 5'8". I have the shortest torso from my armpits to my hip bones that you can imagine. I'm like normal from here to here at this point, rather long. And then between my ribs and my hip bones, there's literally like 3.5 inches. I have no waistline at all. So if I don't sit properly, it's like my rib cage is probably resting on my hips. And what was I talking about? Oh, so I used to be able to wear size 6 petite top from Eileen Fisher, right? Because she has so much ease in her garments that it was sufficient to get around me. I had skinny arms, so I could get my arms in there. And my torso is so short that the petite was plenty long for me. So I could only do it with those like boxy tops that she makes. I could not wear a 6 in everything. One of my favorite summer dresses is a size 6. I think it's a 6. I mean, a size 10. And, so if there's vanity sizing, I might wear a size 8, but my measurements haven't changed that much. So this is, an unfitted dress. I saw it on sale. I was going on vacation. How to have it. And so I'm looking at the photos, and all I was really concentrating on was the armhole. And I know this company cuts their armholes really big and they cut their shoulders wide. So once I realized or was able to determine that the armhole wasn't like already sitting up at the armpit, because a size 6 armpit would probably be really uncomfortable on me, I bought the dress. It was on sale for $60. It's like my favorite summer dress. It fits fabulously. It's getting a little tight in the boobs, which is more because of my back fat than anything else. But so if you don't know where somebody started, it's going to be really hard to figure out where you are going. I know, Moya, I've spent so much time thinking about this, and I have spent so much time staring at people's bodies and then going back to my sizing tables and looking at how ASTM has measured people. I think it is an art form and a science. So a lot of it I kind of know because of all of my pattern making background, my sewing background, and years of just working at this. But a lot of it has been over the last 5 years was seeing where a problem was and then figuring out mathematically how I could address it. And this is like the superpower that those of us who make things have, that we can make adjustments. And the trick is learning how to make those adjustments. And you can make all the adjustments that you want in your boobs. If you've gotten the very top part wrong, you're sunk. With knitting, if you're not working to blocked gauge, you do not know what you're going to get when you finish your piece and wash it. So Moya says, I've had women ask me to design clothes that fit, and it really ends up having to be customizable. So we need to seize our superpower, and not just for ourselves, but to help people who design and who manufacture or make things that we need them to do better. But this is back to my blog post. Why is it my job? I'm like the person getting paid the least amount. I may be the person with the most specialized knowledge, but why is it my job as a designer to fix all this stuff when somebody only wants to pay $5 or $8 for a pattern? And don't even get me started on that, because it's Friday and it's almost time for me to have my cocktail. And it's one of the things I find so frustrating about the knitting industry, the hand knitting industry, is that we are all working in our own little silos. Nobody talks. Nobody who's actually making money wants to talk about sizing and what their job may be. They just want designers to do it. So anyhow, it is 4:05. I can talk about this for the rest of my life, literally. And I have my skeleton whose head I've now done like a spin around. So I have studied this so much. Its head got broken in shipping. Its neck, because I'm looking at it from the skeleton out. And so it isn't just education, Moya, because people have decided that it's more important to spend no money on their clothes than to have clothes that fit. So anyhow, I will end. Okay, so I don't get my cocktails till 6:30 or 7. Yeah, I can talk so much about this. I do a fit clinic on the last Wednesday of every month at noon Pacific time. You are welcome to come. I'm happy to shoot the shit with other designers who need help. I just love this stuff. I think it's so important. And so part of my mission is to just make people pay a little bit more attention. So, I do teach classes, and I can't give all of this away for free, but I will be doing a class on some of the math that goes into this for designers later in the spring. Yeah, I know the Fit Clinic is not a great time. I always record it, so if you sign up for it, you can get access to the video. And same with my Plan to Finish, where you can come. You can always just ask me anything. I'm happy to talk. So 4:58, I'm going to sign off. I will have this video available with subtitles. And yeah, so Iris is short. So, then that's like a whole different, I just talk circumference. I will do another one of these in a month or so. Anyhow, happy knitting. Stay passionate about your knitting. And sign up. So these you can get through Substack. You can find these Instagram live videos, but apparently you have to search them out because I don't do well with the algorithms. And read my Substack. Anyhow, happy knitting. Thank you, Moya, for coming. I was so thrilled when you got in touch with me. And always lovely to see everyone. Usually don't get the video up on Substack until Monday, but it will have subtitles, and except when I forget, I put it into knitting language, so, because everything is knits. Last week I forgot. Anyhow, have a good one. Bye.